All right. All right, 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 all right. Welcome to Politics Alive with Neil, broadcasting from deep inside the belly of the beast, New York City, fighting the liberal Leviathan with nothing more than thoughts, ideas, and a love for America. Politics Alive, the show for patriots, but Democrats are welcome here too. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. But if this is your first time, strap in, sit tight, and be prepared to be awoken from the hypnotic dream state forced upon us by the lotus eaters in the mainstream media. So we have a great show. This is the 9/11, the week of 9/11 on 2022. Also, this is the week that the Queen died. So I'll just tell you right at the bat, I don't really care about the Queen. I'm actually a dual citizen. I'm American and British. So that is my ruler, one of my rulers. And compared to our current American ruler, dementia patient, the Queen certainly has more going on, even at age 96, than he ever had. Certainly more than he has now in his current state of dementia, or I don't know. It's a weird thing with Joe Biden. I'll sort of shut up about it. But yeah, he has dementia, or he has Alzheimer's. He has some sort of cognitive impairment. Plus, he has a history of just not being that sharp anyway. Plus, which actually is forgivable. You can only be as smart as you're smart. To some degree. Certainly, he doesn't lack ambition. So you can't blame him for not trying. And he did go to school. I think he finished in the bottom. I think he was second to last in his law school class. But he went, and you can only do as good as you can do. So I don't blame Joe for not being too smart, but I do blame him for being corrupt. That is something you can't control. But anyway, let's not get totally off track. So basically, the Queen died. God rest her soul. Long live the King, King Charles III. But I don't really care. So I'm mentioning it because it's a big news story. I do not care. I will talk about, I was in New York for 9/11, so maybe I'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. We got a lot of stuff going on. I'm just going to start off. Let me tell you what we have. I have this, you probably already see it a little bit here, but we have a young woman who's going to share some thoughts on America. And then we have some positive, conservative thought, or some thoughts about Joe Biden from the great Bill O'Reilly. There's a story about Louis Gohmert and him giving a flag to a political prisoner here in the United States. And I'm not just going to report the story. I'm going to read it to you the way that CNN reported it, because it's literally just lie after lie after lie after lie after bit of misinformation. So that'll be a little tutorial on how the mainstream media, certainly CNN and similar outlets, lie. There is a rumor, or not a rumor, but somebody new has taken over CNN or bought it, and they're going to try to make it less left-wing loonies, but I'll believe it when I see it. I'll tell you, like I said, a little bit about my 9/11 experience. Oh, and then maybe wrapping up the end of the show, there's a very interesting editorial called "Women Are Disproportionately Hurting Our Country." So it may sound a little misogynistic at the top, but I guarantee you're going to want to hear this. It's written by this guy. I guess he's very active. He's a religious guy, Jewish guy, but he also is a talk radio host and just sort of a political observer called Dennis Prager. So we'll, if we have time, and I'll make time, we'll talk about that. But let's just get stuff started with this girl. Here's a girl, a young girl from Harvard.
Last spring break, I went on a trip with 100 other Harvard undergraduates to Israel. It was one of the most extraordinary experiences of my life, and I will always be grateful to Harvard for that. I recalled the trip with awe and joy, but a certain moment rattled me. Our group attended a Shabbat dinner at a Tel Aviv synagogue. The rabbi proclaimed, "Welcome to Israel. You are all here from America, the best country in the world." He paused, but not a single person clapped. The Israelis stared in disbelief. Americans are the freest, most privileged people on earth. Yet many of us are ashamed to show any, even the tiniest trace of national pride. Why? Because we Americans of recent generations have been swaddled in prosperity and security, and in consequence have become ungrateful for the blessings we enjoy. It requires vigorous athletic imagination for most of us to consider the basic brutal realities that much of the world experiences daily. Even worse, we have consumed a cultural diet that reduces America to its ugliest moments and dismisses its noble ideals and accomplishments as jingoism. This nation saved the world from global catastrophe 3 times in the 20th century. This nation has grown to treat racial, ethnic, and religious minorities with equality and respect compared to other places and times on earth. This is the nation where people are not constrained by their gender, religion, or class, but can work to achieve a better life. In this nation, we can criticize our government, secure in the knowledge that we will rise the next morning and our country will still respect our rights. We view these things to be our birthright, our permanent and guaranteed condition, but they are not. They exist only because past generations have sacrificed to secure and maintain them. And to our discredit, we have used these blessings not to strengthen our country, but to tear it down. We members of this university and we Americans have shirked our responsibility as the most privileged cohort on earth. We have remained cringingly silent in the face of corrosive ideas, woke culture, that has corrupted our institutions and severed the bonds that hold our country together. The New York Times won a Pulitzer Prize for reporting that the sole purpose of the American Revolution was to preserve slavery. And we remain silent. The Oregon Department of Education asserts that showing your work and finding the right answer in math is white supremacist. And we remain silent. The American Medical Association has stated that the U.S. should remove gender from birth certificates. And we remain silent. Howard Zinn, the author of the most widely read history text in American public schools, said that America has done, quote, more bad than good. And we remain silent. We are ashamed to be American. The shame should be on us. Too many use their right to free speech to advocate suspending it for all who disagree with them. What a litany of dishonesty. We are using our privilege to undermine the very system that has given us that privilege. America, despite its failings, is the last great stand on earth. We must speak up against this now.
All right, so I don't know who that is. I would credit her by name. All I know is that was either original content or reposted on a TikTok account called @knowledge=power_. So do your own research. If you can find out who it is, I'm happy to credit her. I'd actually love to invite her to come on to the show and talk about her ideas. Let's just real quick go over a few of those. She talked about how nobody clapped. Somebody said America was great, and then Americans are afraid, to clap. And it's funny. I'm a little bit older, so I remember when people maybe, and I grew up overseas, all over the, not all over the world, but in America, but also in Europe and in Africa and a few other places. So on one level, I get it. Like it's, Americans tend not to be rah rah, super patriotic, flags everywhere when we're overseas, just out of humbleness, because we were, like it or not, we are a better country in so many ways than many of the other places, and some maybe we're not. Who knows? But it was done out of a sense of humbleness. But now there's this new thing where I think a lot of Americans are, they've just been taught that America is bad, so they're quote unquote, not quote unquote, but they're ashamed to be American. So yeah, and I think part of that's because we inherited a country. We inherited this great country with all this stuff. I mean, we invented. Did we invent that? We didn't invent the car, but we essentially invented the modern revolution in cars. We invented aviation. I don't think we invented computers per se, but we certainly were the birthplace of modern technology. The birthplace. We did invent the internet. We did Apple Computer, IBM. Microsoft, those are all American companies. So it's not just luck or a roll of the dice. We are doing something right. But this generation, people alive now, we didn't necessarily do anything. We didn't have to fight for it. We just inherited all this stuff. So I think there's a sense of guilt. It isn't like the World War II generation or even the people in the 60s that, like a generation went to war and they really had to sacrifice, or even in the 30s and stuff, people had to go through the Great Depression. They had to move their families. They had to, labor movement, actually, as bad as it is now in a lot of ways, was a fight worth fighting. People did something, but now people just, don't do anything. They're told, oh, you should just get universal basic income. Just by being alive, you're owed something. And I think that just makes people ungrateful. Stuff that money you inherited, you'll never value as much as money that you worked for. And also, she talks about all these people criticizing the American government, and think of all the people that criticized Donald Trump, who they called him literally a fascist. Oh, he's a fascist. He's an authoritarian. He's a dictator. But what dictator allows you? No president has been criticized and attacked by the other parties as much as Donald Trump. What dictator allows that? Try to do any of that stuff in the USSR back in the day, or try to do it in Fidel Castro's Cuba. Try to do it in China today. Try to critique the leadership the way the American left attacks Donald Trump, or their opposition, or even the way the right attacks their opposition. All of which I'm fine with. I'm a free speech absolutist. But it's just silly to say we're in a dictatorship. So yeah, that's sort of all I have to add on that. But speaking of criticizing our leaders, here's somebody else. This is, I sort of consider this guy like a boomer. Boomers love him, and he is a boomer, I guess, himself. But I think he sort of sums up, let me just pull it up here, but he sums it up pretty good, how Joe Biden is doing.
Told you before the election, you put this man in office, even if you despise Donald Trump, it's going to be bad. I didn't think it would be this bad. No one did. But he is a puppet of the progressive left. And can we now just stop the progressive left? Can we stop? The big thing here is that Joe Biden weakened the infrastructure of the United States by attacking the fossil fuel industry. He did not have to do that. Once he did it, inflation exploded because gas and oil and all the other fossil fuels cost more money because Biden's administration was strangling the industry with regulations, stopping pipelines, making it 10 times harder to operate. All right? So he weakened the fabric of this country. If we had a robust fossil fuel industry, Europe wouldn't need Putin. We could supply all that energy. But Biden tried to destroy it because of the Green New Deal. Can we have a hiatus from that, please, in the face of perhaps a world war? Please? You don't destroy your energy infrastructure until you have another one developed to take its place. Biden doesn't know any of this because he's not smart enough and he's weak and he's a puppet of the progressives. That was the big thing that allowed Putin to make billions and billions of dollars by selling energy to Europe when we could have done it and amass an infrastructure where he says, I don't care what they do to me. I got $600 billion. That's on Biden. And Biden goes, oh, we're going to all have to pay more. Why? Because you, Joe, you, and your stupidity by taking a theory and harming the biggest economic concern we have in the United States, fuel. Oh, it drives me nuts. And all these other progressive things, we got to stop this now. I'm telling you, I don't have any progressive friends anymore. They're gone because I can't stomach them. Criminals running wild, murdering people because progressive DAs funded by George Soros don't want to punish the violent criminals. That's what you're giving me? You support that? Get out of my house. Out. I've had it. Biden is not going to get any better. And the Democratic Party has to get destroyed next November. I don't care whether you like Trump or not. Trump governed this nation in a responsible way where everybody prospered. And if you don't believe that, you're a moron. Every single thing, every single indicator was on positive territory. All the working people, no matter what color they were making more money and there were more jobs. We didn't have inflation. We didn't have supply problems. We didn't have any of it. Now we got all of it, in addition to an open border.
All right. Yeah. So that's basically, to sum that up, that's basically Bill O'Reilly saying, go to your window, open your window, and yell, I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. So that is the voice of truth. Everything he said, I can't disagree with anything that he said. If anything, I would just underscore it. I'd put an exclamation point. All right, so yeah, just moving away from that, let's just cover something a little more pop culture. But I thought this was super interesting, I guess maybe is the word, or just sort of funny. The earlier speaker, the young woman from Harvard, talked about wokeism, and there's a little bit of woke pushback that I thought is super interesting. And let's see if I can do it. Oh yeah, here we go. We don't need to see me here. Does this no? So anyway, there's a Little Mermaid a teaser trailer out. I guess that movie's coming out soon. So it's fine, and it's fine. I don't really care who they cast. It turns out that they cast. I guess originally it was played by a white girl. Like, who cares? So now the live action is played by a black girl. So it's a traditionally, doesn't matter what race the color is. What race the person playing Ariel is. Although it's based on a Dutch fairy tale, so it was a little Dutch girl originally, and it was a white character, and that's fine. Like I say, honestly, I don't care. It's a stupid children's movie. Cast whoever's best for the role is what I would say. But there is this trend where they're remaking all these white characters, and they're casting them as people of color. And once again, that's fine if it's imaginary characters or stuff, but They've done Sir Lancelot as a black person. I mean, it's a historical figure, sort of based on the King Arthur myth slash history. They've done Joan of Arc, who's French, white French girl. They've done a lot of characters. And once again, not the end of the world. If it's a theater piece, that's even more understandable. But when you're doing historic characters, I think some people complain about it or are a little bit shocked because it would never work the other way around. You'd never have Harriet Tubman played by a white woman. You would never have Martin Luther King played by a white person. You would never, and then you say, oh, well, in those cases, their race was, incidental to who they were. But even somebody, if you were doing the Muhammad Ali story, you wouldn't cast a white actor. You cast Jamie Foxx. If you were doing, I don't know who, but the Morgan Freeman story. Yeah, you would cast a black guy. I mean, it just makes sense. If you're doing Shaka Zulu, you would do. You would cast black people as the Zulu Nation. So anyway, once again, I don't have a specific issue, but I thought this was so interesting. I think people are getting sick of this whole woke stuff or the way this only works one way. So rather than say anything terrible, people are just kind of making fun of this Little Mermaid. And then you can watch the clip on your own, but I just want to read some of the comments here. And I'm just in no order, just whatever are the first comments. So these are just the comments. So here's somebody saying, the part where Sebastian says, quote, she's starting to believe, and then Ariel stops all the bullets with her mind, sent chills down my spine. Just stunning. Here's another one. When Ariel swung around New York City and said, with great power comes great responsibility, the whole crowd was in tears. Here's another. The part where Ariel says, Rose, listen to me. Winning that ticket was the best thing that ever happened to me. It brought me to you, and I'm thankful, Rose. I'm thankful. You must do me this honor. Promise me you will survive, that you will never give up no matter what happens. Obviously, that's from Titanic. The part where Eric says, I'll have what she's having. Absolutely iconic, obviously, from When Harry Met Sally. And the part where Ariel says, you think darkness is your alley. Literal goosebumps. So I'm not sure where I think darkness is your alley, but you guys can tell me. The part where, let's see, the part where Sebastian says, I'll be back. Chills, literal chills. The part where Ariel says, you're going to need a bigger boat, really drives it home for me. The part where Ariel orders her drink, shaken, not stirred. True nostalgia. Someone else said the part where Ariel says the name's Mermaid, Little Mermaid. It was another one. The part where, excuse me, the part where Ariel declares winter is coming. Literal chills. Let's just end with one last one. Let's see. The part, the part when Ariel says, "Welcome to Jurassic Park," still gives me chills. So anyway, I think you sort of get what's going on. They're just kind of trolling it because it's too much. It's like once again, who cares? But it's like why does Hollywood have this need to remake existing culture? I actually thought that Black Panther and the whole Wakanda stuff, like they didn't take something that was a white character and remake it as a black character. They didn't take Superman and make him black. They didn't take James Bond and make him black, which they're talking about doing. They didn't take traditionally white characters. I wouldn't be surprised if they do the now that the Queen died, Queen Elizabeth II movie, and then just cast a black woman. Like that's the level they're going to. So I think they actually got it right, whoever they is. But in doing the Black Panther, they took a black character and they made a great movie of it. They created this world, Wakanda. They didn't try to take something that wasn't, that was just part of a white character and try to just make it black. They invented something new. So I think that's the way to go. Don't just try to appropriate everything that's existing. Don't do the William Shakespeare movie and make William Shakespeare black or Chinese or Latino. Just tell, if you want to tell stories, tell stories. Tell Don Quixote. If you want to do a Latino character, tell that story. Just as it would be ridiculous if you were to cast, an Eskimo in Don Quixote. It's just dumb. I mean, you can do it, but anyway. So that's my little comment on on woke culture. All right, so so that brings us to the halfway point. We still got this thing. Women are disproportionately hurting our country to get to, and then maybe right when we get back, I'll just quickly talk about 9/11, and then we'll get into the women are disproportionately hurting our country. And hey, if we have any time left after that, we might even get to a little bit of Andrew Tate, the most banned man in the history of the internet. All right, we'll be right back. A PSA from Politics Live with Neil. Enough debates. Just go out and get it already. It protects you, your family, and everyone in the community. It's been scientifically, mathematically, and statistically proven to make everyone safer. The communities that got them are overwhelmingly safer. The chances of side effects or accidents are so unbelievably small that it's completely absurd not to get one already. Quit being selfish, quit arguing online, and go buy a gun. Hashtag stay safe. All right, we are back. All right, so before we get into any 9/11 remembrances, let's just quickly blow through one of my favorite websites, which is called patriots.win, and just see what they have. Let's just see what a couple of their posts are. Basically, for those that don't know, patriots.win is a pro-Trump, kind of like Reddit, but it's a little more limited in that it's pro-America, pro-patriots, pro-Donald Trump, generally speaking, pro-anti-establishment conservative opinions. All right, so let's just see what's on the patriots.win today. Here's one headlined 100% effective, not as effective as they wished. It's just a report. I guess it's a retweet. But Maggie Bakradze, one of the first nurses who received the COVID vaccine on television, is now dead. So I don't, here's the, so here she's a nurse in Georgia, Georgia in America. She falls into a coma after getting the AstraZeneca vaccine, and she dies. And she was 27 years old, and by all measures, seemed to be in good health. I just wish that they would report. I have no idea if these vaccines are killing people or not. But I just wish we would report on them as much as we reported on how wonderful these vaccines were, which proved not to be the case. All right, here's one. This is about Carrie Lake. It's from Carrie Lake's Twitter account. Carrie Lake is a woman. I guess she used to be a news reporter. But then she decided to run for governor. She's been endorsed by Donald Trump, but she's running for governor of Arizona. And by all measures, she seems great. She does want to do something about the open border between Arizona and Mexico. She's in favor of energy independence. She's in favor of basically of working people. She's in favor of policies that help the citizens of Arizona. Shocking, I know. So anyway, here's her quick little report. State of the Union. Mississippi has no clean water. California has no electricity. Arizona has no border. Chicago is a war zone. D.C. children are functionally illiterate. San Francisco is covered in human feces. Memphis is under siege. And Ukraine is $2 trillion richer. So yes, they've received a lot of money from the U.S. and the rest of the world in a war that they seem like they're the good guys. Russia seems like the bad guys. but it doesn't affect the United States national security. And I'm not saying we don't do anything, but our country is literally falling apart these days. And we're more worried about the citizens of Ukraine than we are worried about our own citizens. And another example of this exact kind of thing that Carrie's talking about, and this is from me, is I live here in New York City. Yeah, I'm also a California resident. I'm a little bit back and forth. And I'm a student at Los Angeles Valley College remotely. But here in New York City, Texas has been shipping up illegal aliens. Illegal aliens come in, they ship up, not that many, but a few thousand by buses to New York City because Texas is taking in hundreds and hundreds of thousands of them every year. So they're shipping a few up to New York City, and then New York City has to virtue signal so much that what they're doing is they are taking these illegal aliens that snuck into our country. And once again, I don't blame them. I would do the same thing if I lived in a S-hole country, or any place that was inferior, and the U.S. just had an open border. But nonetheless, so New York City is housing them in hotels, and in some cases, it looks like they're spending over $300 million, or they will be spending over $300 million to put a lot of them up in luxury hotels. I guess, because that's what's available, but still, that's what's available. So their American citizens are sleeping on the street, but illegal aliens who are not even American citizens immediately are put up in luxury hotels. Back to Carrie's point, as one of the Patriots.win user said, she's a great communicator, right to the point. I agree. Here's another, I guess we're just reading some tweets, but it's all from Patriots.win. This is from a Republican representative by the name of Thomas Massie. And he says, no one in Washington, D.C. is qualified to decide what food your family eats, where your kids learn, how much you earn at work, what health treatment you receive, what you may post on social media. But they try because there's a lot of power and money riding on those decisions. End of tweet. So in D.C. they're trying to, and certainly in California too, they're trying to impose vegetarianism and all sorts of dietary limits on people. And hey, if you want to be a vegetarian, that's fine, but not necessarily the government's job. And also, they don't do a great job. Where your kids learn, yes, they definitely favor substandard public schools over private schools or homeschooling, whereas they should let the parents decide. And if a parent is able to homeschool their kid, by all means, do that. There's no way it's not going to be better than what the kids are getting at the indoctrination centers called public schools. How much you earn at work? Well, it might be too late for that one. The taxes at the moment, basically depending what bracket you're in, but if you're middle class, you're paying between 4 to 6 months. So half of your year goes to taxes or government fees in one way or another. And that's not even counting the hidden costs. Like, in other words, if you give, I forget what it is, but if you give 14%, I think, to Social Security taxes, then your employer is also matching that. So, at the end of the day, it's funny, the medieval serfs had to give 25% of their crop, what they earned. Basically, 25% of their work went to their feudal overlord. And they were considered serfs, or basically almost like slaves. Now we give half of our money one way or another to the government. And I'm including your payroll taxes, but also your sales tax. All the $300 you have to pay to register your car, all that stuff. You add it all up, half of your money's going to the government. So we wish we only had to pay 25% to the feudal overlord. All right, so that's Thomas Massie. Here's a little article. Well, maybe I'll get that at the end. Here's another comment from Patriots.win. It's saying, It's from another representative-based representative. So, we do have some good politicians. For all my critiques, we have this guy, Paul Gosar and Willie Gomart, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Jim Jordan, Josh Hawley. We do have some, Lauren Boebert. We do have some pretty great, Donald Trump, of course, but we do have some pretty great politicians, which is easy to forget when we're so focused on these career criminals like Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell and Mitt Romney and Liz Cheney and the Bushes and the Clintons and the Obamas. We have all these terrible people that are, and the Chuck Schumers, and the Paul Ryans, and the Dick Cheneys. So it just goes on and on. There's just so many bad eggs in there that are sort of running the show that we forget that we have a little bit of a peaceful insurgency trying to change things. Like the Ron DeSantis and the guy from Virginia, the governor Youngkin seems pretty decent. Obviously, all of these Trump candidates, Carrie Lake, who's running, we hope she wins. But in the good pile, I'm going to include this Paul Gosar. He's talking about something that January 6th, political prisoners, and we'll get to this a little bit later too, but the January 6th political prisoners are still rotting in jail with limited access to basic necessities. The civil rights abuses being inflicted on them reflect a third world political system. Free the J6 political prisoners. Never forget Ashley Babbitt. So Ashley Babbitt was a protester who was guilty. She was guilty of trespassing. She entered the Capitol. She entered it. That's basically her crime. And a Capitol police officer, no warning, just pulled out a gun, shot her in the neck, and killed her. So, should she have been trespassing? No. Should the officer have yelled a warning, like, hey, stop? Yes. Should his first thing been to shoot her in the neck and kill her? No. Could you imagine? There's this guy, Jacob Blake, who pulled a knife on cops and tried to kill them with the knife, and they shot him in self-defense, and there were riots in Kenosha. But here, anyway, so it's one set of rules for liberal protesters and another set for people on January 6th. Also, January 6th was 4 hours. They shouldn't have done it. They were kind of jerks, some of them. Most people were just there. There are people in jail. There's a woman. Anyway, there's a bunch. There's people in jail for a year, held without bail. Their crime is a crime of trespassing. Misdemeanor trespassing, getting sentenced to 6 months or longer. There's the Buffalo hat guy. I think he got many, many years. He shouldn't have walked around with a buffalo hat. But anyway, I don't want to get on too much of a tangent, but I just want to say we do have political prisoners. There are people that participated in the BLM murder riots, of which 32 people, innocent people, died, including 8-year-old Sequoia Turner, including 77-year-old David Dorn, and 30 others that we know of. $2 billion in damage, thousands injured, hundreds of police officers injured, and once again, 32 people murdered in 10 months of BLM riots, of murder riots, looting, and I don't see any of them locked up like political prisoners. In fact, and I just want to preface this by saying there were well-intentioned people protesting at BLM protests. But you can't, that isn't how you do it. There are probably good people at KKK rallies. Some people that just didn't know. They're like, oh, I'm just going to go and support my race. But overall, the group is bad, and the leadership of the BLM is bad, corrupt eggs. And night after night after night, if people are dying in your protests and you don't call those protests off, if you don't do something to stop it, then at some point you got to take blame. And we all saw these riots. We saw CNN standing in front of riots and burning. Cities burning, parts of cities burning, mostly black parts of cities. So that's what, and CNN reporters are out there calling these protests mostly peaceful. Yeah, okay. So anytime there's a murder riot, most of the people aren't doing the murdering, but at some point you gotta take some blame for it. So I went a little off topic, but the point is, I will never be silent and not talk about the January 6th political prisoners, no matter how much the message from the media is to just ignore them. All right, so that's Paul Gosar. Good guy, good guy, good guy. All right, so here's a little, here's, do you want to hear the monkey story? Yeah, I'll read the monkey story. The monkey story. Well, here, I'll just read the monkey story. Not that long, about 3 paragraphs. So five monkeys are placed in a cage as part of an experiment. In the middle of a cage was a ladder with bananas on the top rung. So every time a monkey tried to climb the ladder, the experimenter sprayed all of the monkeys with icy water. Eventually, each time a monkey started to climb the ladder, the other monkeys would pull him off and beat him up so that they could avoid getting the icy spray. Soon, no monkey dared go up the ladder. The experimenter then substituted one of the monkeys in the cage with a new monkey. The first thing the new monkey did was try to climb the ladder to reach the bananas. After several beatings, the new monkey learned the social norm. He never knew why the other monkeys wouldn't let him go for the banana, because he had never been sprayed with the ice water. But he quickly learned that this behavior would not be tolerated by the other monkeys. So one by one, each of the monkeys in the cage was substituted out for a new monkey until none of the original group remained. So these are all 5 new monkeys. But each time a new monkey went up the ladder, the rest of the group pulled him off, even those who had never been sprayed with the icy water. End of story, end of experiment. So I think that's kind of how it is now. Like with this woke culture and everything that's being imposed upon us, and all these attacks on Trump supporters, and they're calling us semi-terrorists or semi-fascists and extremist MAGA. I mean, can you imagine? But we're just being gaslighted into that we don't even know why. Why is it bad? Like, literally the message of MAGA is make America, we live in America, it is make America great again. Like, how is that a bad message? But we've just been, sprayed with icy water by, in this case, our mainstream media and our politicians. We just accept that being, wanting to make America great is bad. I hear all this talk about, Christian nationalism is the worst thing. I'm not even Christian. But I like Christians. I think Christians are great. I have no problem with Christians. If there's a way to look at the world, and I've read C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity, and I grew up Catholic, and I'm not opposed in any way. It's a pretty good way to look at the world. It's a system that allows forgiveness and growth and puts an importance on things beyond just the material. So first of all, so why is it bad to be a Christian national? Like why is it bad to be a nationalist? Like, we live in America. Why is it bad to like America, to be in favor of America? So it's not bad, as far as I'm concerned, to be a nationalist. And why is it bad to be Christian? Also, once again, it's not. The whole point of Christianity is you try to convert people. You don't force them. It's not like, as has been seen in maybe the medieval ages during Christianity, where people were forced to be Christians, or even in 2022, where people are forced under penalty of death to become Muslim. Nobody's forcing anybody to be a Christian. So I just don't see, Christian nationalism. For somebody to be that just means they're a Christian and a nationalist. They're not saying anyone else has to be. They're not saying we can't have our Constitution. Anyway, it's just silly. But that's, we're all a bunch of monkeys afraid to go for the banana because some previous generation has been sprayed with ice water. and now we're just coward and scared to do anything. We don't even know why. All right. So you know what? We're here. We'll finish with this. So here's a guy called Cenk Uygur, and he's I guess, one of the hosts on a far left, sort of extremist, left-wing nut job website, I guess, called the Young Turks, which is actually named after a group of a group of murderous revolutionaries from Turkey that killed innocent people. So I don't know why you'd name yourself them. That's like calling yourself, I don't know, after any group, it's like calling yourself, naming yourself after the Russian revolutionaries or something. But I guess that's not a stretch for the left. So anyway, so here's Cenk. Here's what he has to say. Every time I hear Trump speak, I can't believe the other side can't see that he's a lunatic, an absolute raving madman. How can they not? We see it, Cenk. We see it. But he's our madman. And sometimes you need a madman that you can't predict if they're doing the right things. I mean, Nietzsche was was pretty raving mad at times. But he was putting out really interesting ways of looking at the world. So sometimes if somebody's doing all the right things, there's a certain kind of madness that's helping the world, and it's just best. Elon Musk is a madman in some way. If he said, hey, if a few years ago he said, hey, I'm going to put people on Mars, and I'm going to build rocket ships, and I'm going to build submarines that go through dirt and call it the Boring Company, and I'm going to be the richest man in the world. They'd say he's crazy, but is he crazy? Is Steve Jobs crazy? In some ways, he was. Is Albert Einstein crazy? In some ways, he was. There's weird stuff about him. He married his own cousin, and I think I don't know. There's even more incestuous, weird stuff going on with him. But so is Albert Einstein a madman? Yeah, in some ways, to even think that way. Is Margaret Thatcher a madman? Well, a mad woman. Yeah, in some ways. So I think there is a quality of craziness to people that see beyond. And Donald Trump saw beyond what he just saw beyond. That America. Certainly under Obama, starting maybe under Bush, but certainly under Obama, America was a country that was just heading down. Like we were a country in decline, much like we were under Jimmy Carter, and then Ronald Reagan came and sort of woke us up again and reminded us that we are a great country. So we sort of needed somebody like that again. So we were a country in decline. We had this mopey, sort of didn't like America, thought we were kind of a bad country leader called Barack Obama. America's an evil, racist, sexist country, blah, blah, blah. We're no good. We have to give billions of dollars to Iran and our enemies, and we'll never be great. And Donald Trump said, no, we're not. We have to give up on our, we have to give up on our factories. We have to give up on manufacturing. And sorry, my name is Barack Obama, and America sucks. America, it's the worst country. My name's Barack, and this is my wife, Michelle. And terrible country. Racism. We have to support Black Lives Matter. If I had a son, he would look like Trayvon, who was beating up somebody. My wife said she's never been proud of America until I became president. All right, so we had that doofus ruling us. All righty. So let's wrap up that. So that was the report from Patriots.win. All right. And we're back. So this is an article by Dennis Prager. It's called Women Are Disproportionately Hurting Our Country. So he says, when I was in college, I read a book by George Gilder, one of the wisest thinkers of the last half century, titled Naked Nomads, which had a deep impact on me. It was about single men and all of the pathologies associated with them. For example, Gilder drove home the point that the biggest factor concerning violent crime is that it was overwhelmingly committed by single men. While there was no danger that I would commit a violent crime, this fact, along with the others in the book, made me a lifelong advocate of marriage. I also came to realize that raising good men, says Dennis Prager, was the most important thing a society could do. If it doesn't, the male propensity to physical aggression and predatory sexual behavior will wreak havoc. Therefore, raising boys to control their natures is fundamental to society avoiding chaos. Over the course of a lifetime, however, I came to realize that while society was right about males, it was wrong about females. So whether spoken or unspoken, most people thought that girls just didn't need to be raised to control their natures nearly as much as boys do. But they do, says Prager. It is true that females are not inclined to violence or predatory sexual behavior as men are, but this hardly means that girls and women don't have to learn to control their natures. On the contrary, as I've been telling parents for many years now, they need to teach their daughters to control their natures just as much as they teach their sons to do. Specifically, girls have to learn to control their emotions. Just as the male sexual drive and violent impulses can overwhelm their conscience and their ability to think and act rationally in boys, emotions can do the same things in girls and women, overwhelm their conscience and their ability to think and act rationally. However, it should be obvious that at least two generations of parents, especially among the well-educated, did not teach many of their daughters to control their emotions and think rationally. The result is that women are disproportionately active in doing damage to our society. This is most obvious in education. American schools teach less and indoctrinate more than ever before. Big city public and most private schools are damaging young Americans to an extent and in ways no one imagined just a few years ago. Young children are prematurely sexualized. They are, for example, exposed to drag queen story hour in class in local libraries from the age of 5. These feature a man dressed as a woman reading and dancing for them. And I'll just add, often dancing very sexually. And who is facilitating all this? Virtually in every case, a woman. 92% of kindergarten teachers are women, 75% of all teachers are women, and 85% of librarians are women. They are teaching young people to despise their country. The creator of the poisonous 1916 project, the history project in the New York Times, is a woman. They are taught to feel guilty about their white privilege or to think of themselves as victims if they are black. Even worse, they are indoctrinating them in non-binary thinking regarding sex and gender. As City Journal reports, Los Angeles Unified School District has adopted a radical gender theory curriculum encouraging teachers to work towards the breakdown of the gender binary, to experiment with gender pronouns such as they, z, and tree, and to adopt trans-affirming programming to make their classrooms queer all the school year. The same is happening in school districts around the country. These ideas originated in university gender studies and women's studies departments. Nearly all of these professors are female. Teachers and their unions did great damage to young people during COVID-19. They demanded, because of their hypochondria and apparent inability to apply reason to COVID-19 risks, that schools be closed for nearly 2 years. Teachers' unions, majority women, in big cities threatened to go on strike if schools opened. In general, teachers' unions are just radical arms of the Democratic Party and the progressive movement. They are overwhelmingly composed of women members and women leaders. The head of the National Education Association is a woman, as are the heads of the Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York teachers' unions. Women physicians and healthcare workers are at the vanguard of ruining young people's lives at children's hospitals that push giving young people puberty-blocking hormones and opposite gender hormones, performing hysterectomies and mastectomies on healthy girls, and I'll just add this, often as young as 12, who say they are boys, and chemically or physically castrating healthy boys, and there's evidence that they've done this on boys as young as 16, chemically or physically castrating healthy boys who say they are girls. And I'll just add this here. If you're a man, an adult, and you want to cut your wiener off, I don't get it. It's your body. Do what the heck you want. If you're a woman, you want to cut your breasts off, you want to take a piece of your leg flesh and form it into a pseudophallus and say you're a man, I don't give a hoot. Just the same way I don't give people put horns on their head or split their tongues or get piercings or nipple rings or liposuction or plastic surgery. Do whatever the hell you want, but stay the hell off of the children. Anyway, let me get back to the article. So women are at the vanguard of perverting the medical profession by advocating the teaching of woke ideologies in medical schools, placing these ideologies on an equal footing with medical education. Last week, an organization called Physicians for Reproductive Health published an open letter to the nation's reporters and news editors demanding they censor anti-abortion activists. We are asking for a commitment from the community of media outlets reporting on abortion to keep in mind the true danger that you present when interviewing anti-abortion extremists. You are giving the opportunity for dangerous lies to spread, unquote. So this is physicians demanding that speech be censored. Back to the article. As regards the demand that news outlets censor pro-life individuals and groups, the open letter was signed by more than 600 medical doctors and other health care professionals. Excuse me. Nearly every signatory was a woman, and all four of the listed leaders of Physicians for Reproductive Health are women. Women clergy have been at the vanguard of pushing Christianity and Judaism to the left, leaving mainstream churches and synagogues increasingly empty. Of course, the increasingly feminized male clergy go along with their female colleagues. And women are disproportionately supportive of cancel culture, the greatest threat to free speech in American history. It should go without saying, but it's undoubtedly necessary to note that there are many women doing great, even heroic things for society, and that many men are working to wreck it. But for those who associate with women with instinctively protecting children or with being supportive of a traditionally religious life, this era in American history has provided something of a shock. So that's the headline of this is, are women disproportionately hurting our country? And I think, I think in certain ways they are. I mean, he sort of makes the case, if you said, are men disproportionately causing more violent crime than women? Yeah, of course. I think 95% of murders are done by men, 90% of violent crimes, I'm just spitballing off the top of my head, but most violent crimes are done by men. So if you said, hey, are men disproportionately causing the, undue or, disproportionate share of violence, of certain kind of crimes, you'd have to say yes. But when it comes to all this woke stuff that's really harming America, there are so many great women, but I think you do have to agree. Women are in these areas, in this woke way, in this really harmful gender stuff to children and sexualized drag shows. Women who are supposed to be the protectors of children are causing the most harm. Anyway, that's just Dennis Prager's thoughts with a few of my own added in just for fun. What are you guys' thoughts? We're out of time today, so feel free to send me an email. It's Patriot News Minute, all one word, at gmail.com. Patriot News Minute at gmail.com. Send your concerns, or if you're watching this on YouTube, leave something in the comments. And if you have any thoughts, and anyone who emails me, if you want to be a guest on the show, you're also welcome. I'll have you on. If I think you're interesting. But all points of view are welcome, including and especially including those who oppose, to have a different point of view than my own. All right, so that concludes today's show. Thank you guys for listening, and stay tuned. We will be back, next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. We're broadcasting at 95.1 KVCM, Kangaroo Victor Mango Charlie, Kangaroo Victor Mango Charlie, KVCM, FM 95.1 on the FM dial. I am at Neil News Network on YouTube. We're on Twitch at Monarch Radio. Is our username on Twitch, and on the internet, kvcm.live 24/7 to hear all of the KVCM radio show hosts. All right, see you next time.